Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I am so excited to be here and very grateful for you guys to come here and listen to me when I'm going to talk about my favorite thing, which is about creating homes. And I am going to dig in a little bit deeper into it, what it means to be a great homemaker and what it is that makes some great at it and others find it a bit difficult. And I'm going to lay out a model of what I've learned over the years, and I'm inviting you to explore that model with me. So this is what I have discovered. The creation of a home where everyone feels welcome and that induces a sense of belonging and also that reflects the owner's personality comes down to the development of four main things, what I call the four pillars of homemaking. And in this session today, I'm going to dig into the first pillar, and the other three I'm going to share in the following session. So we're just going to focus on the first one now and touch on what it is, was the first most fundamental thing. So what every successful homemaker does is that they've taken the time to define and refine their own unique aesthetics. And you're probably asking yourself, well, how do I do that? And this is one of the most common questions I get from my clients, and often the reason why people come to me is because they're so overwhelmed, there's so many choices, and they're so unsure that how do I know that what I choose and bring into my home, what I do with my home is going to last, because it's expensive. Furniture expensive, homeware is expensive, renovation is the thing. How do I know it's going to last? How do I know I'm going to like it in 3 years' time, in 4 years' time, in 10 years' time? And particularly in this time when we are absolutely bombarded with imagery, we have there's magazines, we've got blogs, we've got Pinterest, we have Instagram, we've got TV program that's talking about interiors and everything looks perfect and it's daunting and I don't know where I'm going to even start. And there's so many options, there's so many possibilities. How do I know and trust my own style? And how do I know what to pull out of that and take it and make it mine? And I believe it's like any other skill, just an aesthetics is also a skill, and it consists of initially having an interest in something. And obviously, and you're here because you have an interest in your home, you have an interest in interior design, an interest in how our spaces affects us. And the other thing is practice. And developing a strong aesthetics is not different from developing a strong, any other skill. It's a muscle that gets strengthened through practice and training. So can I ask you, when you sort of scroll through your Instagram feed or you flick through a magazine, do you actually pay attention to what it is that you see or like, or do you just react without much thought as to why you like it? And I'm guessing you're here today because you have a genuine interest in your home and you probably have a reasonable idea about what you like and don't like. And what I'd like to do today, I'm hoping that you'll gain a slightly deeper understanding in why you like or dislike something. So we're going to do a short exercise. I want you to be involved in this. And you can have a notebook and a paper handy if you feel you want to take some notes, or you can just kind of visualize and internalize it and memorize it. But before we go into the exercise, I just want to share a couple of experiences from my life, which in a way has really helped me. And I've realized this is very much how I think as I create and work with people's home. So the first experience I want to share with you, and if you've read my book, you might remember this scene. It's from my third or fourth grade, and it's winter, and I had a teacher that created this morning ritual for us where we would no, we weren't allowed to talk as we entered into the corridor outside the classroom, and then we would go into the classroom and it was all dark and dimmed light. And we had to all go and sit at our desks and be quiet. And then he would go and sit at his desk and pull out in the top drawer where he had a matchbox, and then he would light one single candle on his desk. And then he would start to read to us. And this memory is so vivid in me. It was such an had made such an impact on me. Not just the story that he read, and I particularly remember him reading Jules Verne, Around the World in 80 Days, and Phileas Fogg's All Adventure, but it was more that feeling that it invoked in me. And I remember feeling so safe, and I felt so kind of trusting in the environment and where I was. And I felt intrigued with the story that was going to come. But I also remember that I was really there. I was 100% there with all my senses. And it just, I come back to that often. And often when I still light a candle, it kind of reminds me of that. And another experience I want to share with you is from my 20s when I lived in Stockholm. And I have this friend, and she's still an extraordinarily homemaker. And she was already then, because I remember every time she invited me to their home or her home, I just always looked forward to it because I knew that the experience was going to be so special. It was her furniture and her sofa was so comfy and soft, and she had candles burning on the table. There were flowers and pots in the windowsills, and she worked at a cafe or at a bakery or a restaurant. No, I think it was a bakery. And she would always bring out home all these delicious buns and biscuits. So there was plenty of everything. There was always just an abundance of food and warmth and welcoming. And I remember feeling so appreciative of being there and having her as a friend. I felt warm and I felt engaged and I felt really optimistic. And I know we would always talk about what we were going to do with our lives and what we were going to create and what we were planning to do. It was such an enriching experience. So I think about that a lot still, and what it was that made those experiences so special. And the last one I want to share was quite recent. It was last year when I was in Belgium, and I was visiting a friend, and I knew she had bought this amazing space. It was a loft in Antwerp, but I wasn't quite sure what to expect. And when I walked into her apartment or her loft, it was like I had to take a second sort of breath because it was completely breathtaking. So her home is part of a development along the canal in Antwerp, and it used to be a gin distillery. The building has extraordinary architecture already, and the way that it had been preserved and enhanced to become apartments is just absolutely beautiful. It's got, double height ceilings, got these arched windows. There's a lot of original raw materials that have been preserved, and the space is just so tranquil, and the palette is earthy, and the materials are very tactile and soft, yet really honest, and there's a solidity to it. And I remember walking in and I felt like, whoa, I felt so peaceful. Here's a picture of the space. You can imagine it's like 8-meter ceilings. And I felt like otherworldly and so inspired and so serene. And I felt really connected to something in myself. So the reason I'm sharing these experiences with you, so although these, the classroom and my friend's place and this apartment or loft in Antwerp might not be exactly a reflection of what my aesthetics is like and what my home looked like, but what it did, it evoked a certain feeling in me. And they gauged all my senses. I remember the smell of that sofa or the mattress in the classroom. I remember the softness of the couch and the taste of the cinnamon and the light sort of streaming in from the windows in that apartment in Antwerp. And I know that I want to evoke these feelings again to feel good. And that's what the spaces that I create and the homes that I have. I want my family and my guests to feel warm. I want them to feel inspired. I want them to feel there's a generosity and there's an abundance. And I'm not saying that the physical environments is the only thing that affects us. I mean, if my teacher had been a real kind of dickhead and yelled and screamed at us instead of reading us a story, I would have a different experience. But the fact is that he was actually quite a harsh teacher, but these mornings he was different. He had a different voice, he acted differently, he was much more gentle with us. So the fact that, the way the light, and the candle, and the fact that we weren't allowed to talk kind of put us all in a mood that was just so memorable. And I've forgotten a lot of things from my schooling, but that I still remember. And why is that? It's because it made me feel and it made me behave a certain way and it made me think a different way. I mean, I still remember that story around the world. The fact that I even remember Phileas Fogg is extraordinary because I haven't read that book since. So what I want you to do now is to close your eyes and think about spaces, places you've been to in your life that has made an impact on you, a place that evoked a strong, positive feeling. I mean, it could have been a home, it could be a bar, a restaurant, it could be a museum, maybe a church, it could be out in nature, a country barn, anywhere that you kind of remember with a positive feeling. And bring that to the front of mind and think about the feelings that you felt. You might have felt like I did, abundant and appreciative and warm and welcome and optimistic, or you might have been peaceful, you might have felt present and relaxed or enchanted, you might have felt engaged, enthusiastic, excited and happy, refreshed. Maybe you felt, adventurous and strong or stimulated. Maybe you felt serene. And this exercise, getting used to how and noticing how you feel when you are in a space or when you look at an image, is what I believe the first step in becoming really clear about your own aesthetics and finding a way of making choices when it comes to your own spaces and home and getting that confidence around what to do, because everything starts with if you want to feel a certain way, and the reason that we create a space is that we want to feel a certain way. So that's kind of the starting point. And discovering your style is really about how you feel about things and less so about what it looks like. We'll be talking more about, other aspects of, the homes in our next sessions. But initially, I want you to really think about what it is that you feel. And there are other parts that will obviously also has an impact on your aesthetics, which is around your personality and your aspirations and your interests. But I'm not going to go in that today because I want to keep this session reasonably short. So I want to finish off with that and leave you with this notion of becoming more attentive to how you feel when you enter a space or when you look at an image of a space, and start to really think about the feelings you want to have that will then guide you in your choices as you develop your own unique aesthetic muscle. So just to reiterate, the first pillar and the 4 pillars of homemaking is to define and refine your own unique aesthetic so that you can feel confident in making the right decision. And the first step in that, in developing your aesthetics, I believe, is to become really aware of how you feel and how you want to feel and how you want people to feel in your space. So in the next session, we are going to explore and dig a little bit deeper into this second pillar of homemaking, in the 4 pillars of homemaking. And the second pillar is to learn what to do with what you already have. So knowing what's worth keeping, what to remove, really studying the space you're in and understanding what do I do with this space that I am living in or renting or have bought or whatever, but really knowing what to do with what you have. So the first pillar is to kind of know your unique style, and the second one is to know what to do with what you already have. So I'm really looking forward to meeting you again. I hope you come in, and I am very grateful again that you are listening to me rambling on. I hope there is some value that you kind of get out of it, and it will help you in creating the most beautiful and the most truest and the most gorgeous home that you can imagine. So if you want to download the exercise or an outline of the exercise that we just did, and also a little cheat sheet with the feelings, you can just follow the link in the description of this. And I'm looking forward to talk about the next pillar, number 2, next week. So we have had a couple of requests about timing of the sessions, and I know we initially scheduled it for a 1 p.m., but because there are people in other parts of the world that might want to join, we will probably do it a bit later in the afternoon so that they're awake in Europe. So I will be posting that shortly. So with that, I'm going to leave you, and I am looking forward to seeing you next week. So don't forget, check out the feeling sheet and the process, and also you'll get the 4 pillars. So thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.